Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. Yes, I believe it is. Yes, it is the Talamanca Review. Let me get my logo up there. There we go. So, gosh, I don't even know what to talk about. I mean, it's not for a lack of things. It's for a plethora of things. And usually when you see me or hear thinking a little bit, it's about how to approach, the time in which we're living and this sort of stuff, because it's an interesting time to be alive. Let me just adjust that camera. Hang on a sec here. There we go. I think it's a better perspective. I like it. So, there's a lot of funny things going on now in my life. Number one, my whole life I've been a news junkie. And this is an affectation of getting a journalism degree. You are sort of commanded, in a sense, to stay informed when you're going to work in the journalism field. And so you become an information junkie as you're going through university, as we call it in Canada, college, as you call it in the United States. Your professors advocate that you read as many periodicals as possible and as many forms of journalism as possible, like the quick newscast, and that just gives you a one-dimensional perspective, a plane crash today or something like this. To longer form journalism, like long articles in the New Yorker, the Atlantic, Slate, and well thought out. Now, this is barring any conspiratorial sense of how the world is run, but well thought out context pieces, from the Brookings Institute, the Council on Foreign Relations, op-ed pieces in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. Now, remember, when I went to university, it was from 88 to 92. So we didn't really have a perspective of these publications like we do today. And quite frankly, they worked better. They were good publications back then. And, one of the hardest things to do in life is to maintain context, right? Because when you think about all of the emotions that drive you into a moment in a negative state, they're usually pivoting off of a detail or two, or a handful of details that you can't stop obsessing about. This has become the case with Jeffrey Epstein and the rampant pedophilia. And it's not just pedophilia, it's uglier than that. Okay? This goes into what we call the UFO movement. This goes into genetics, energy harvesting, basically using human beings and specifically children as a commodity. And, the darker annals of our craft or sullen art here in podcasting and information dispersal is that, some of these children suffer fates that from a human perspective are just almost unimaginable. For example, they're eaten. They're literally cannibalized either by non-human beings not of this earth, or by human beings. Human beings have taken up cannibalization, but the human beings that do that, you see, one of the things I'm trying to do as I go along in the Talamanca review is to keep my context correct. I have forgotten more things than most people will know about what's going on in this world. And sometimes even I forget, how to put it all together and how to talk about it and how to contextualize it. Do you want to know? I'll give you a brilliant example of contextualization here. And I'll bet you've never thought about it this way. Let's take a look at it.
Forrest Gump. Would you like a chocolate?
Oh, thank you.
It's funny what a young man recollects.
You're the same as everybody else. You are no different.
Your boy's different.
Are you stupid or something? Mama says stupid as stupid does. I'm Jenny. I'm Forrest Gump.
She was my most special friend. My only friend. We was together all the time. We was like peas and carrots, Jenny and I.
Run, Forrest!
Hey, stupid!
Run!
Now, you wouldn't believe it if I told you, but I can run like the wind blows.
Who in the hell is that?
That there's Forrest Gump, Coach. Just a local idiot.
I never thought it would take me anywhere. They even put me on a thing called the All-America team, where you get to meet the President of the United States.
Congratulations. How does it feel to be an All-American?
I gotta pee.
I believe he said he had to go pee.
Now, maybe it's just me, but college was very confusing times.
Have you ever been with a girl, Forrest?
I sit next to them in my home economics class all the time.
Have you given any thought to your future?
Go! What's your sole purpose in this army?
To do whatever you tell me, drill sergeant?
You're a damn genius. You are going to be a general someday, Gump.
Yes, drill sergeant!
They sending me to Vietnam.
Listen, you promise me something, okay? If you're ever in trouble, don't try to be brave. You just run, okay?
Okay.
Where you boys from in the world? Alabama, sir. You twins?
No, we are not relations, sir. For some reason, what I was doing seemed to make sense to people.
Forget about me and get yourself out!
Been awarded the Medal of Honor.
How come? Now, my mama's always telling me how miracles happen every day. Some people don't think so.
Jenny!
But they do. You can come home with me at my house in Greenbow. I'll take care of you.
Why are you so good to me?
You're my girl.
Paramount Pictures presents Tom Hanks.
I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
Robin Wright.
Will you marry me? I'd make a good husband, Jenny.
You would, Forrest.
But you won't marry me.
Gary Sinise.
I never thanked you for saving my life.
And Sally Field.
My boy Forrest is going to get the same opportunities as everyone else.
A film by Robert Zemeckis.
What's my destiny, Mom?
You're gonna have to figure that out for yourself.
The world will never seem the same once you've seen it through the eyes of Forrest Gump.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
And there you go, The World Through the Eyes of Forrest Gump. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was what I would call a masterpiece of contextual storytelling. Because it was absolutely a baby boom story. Okay, so baby boom is 45 to 65. And so, it begins if Forrest is old enough to go to the Vietnam War, then he's got to be at least 18 in the late 60s. So he's probably born around 1950. Right, and so that's a classic baby boomer story. But I call it a masterpiece of contextual storytelling because it tells essentially the story of a time like the 20th century, especially the major events of the baby boom generation when they were in their prime. Okay? And to the best of my knowledge, no other generation has documented itself as vociferously as the baby boomers. Self-document, they are the original selfie culture. They did, and it's ironic because they didn't have the cell phones, and they weren't literally taking selfies, but they love to look at themselves. It's an ironic mirror kind of culture. And so now the reason I bring up Forrest Gump is I guess that's the title of tonight's podcast, because what I'm going to try and do is give you a context for like what we're going through now. Because if you're looking at it just through the details, you'll go crazy. You'll go absolutely nuts. Okay? Now, the first thing to understand, which the Talamanca Review goes out of its way to stress, is that, boy, that is a bit high there, my volume. Usually I'm low, today I'm high. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Hang on a second. Hello, testing. Yeah, there we go. And so if you focus on the details, you're going to go crazy. Okay? Yeah, and I would say, in many ways, I would say the art of meditation is consistently recontextualizing yourself to a spiritual context in life. And it can't be done as a mental exercise. It's not an Anthony Robbins thing. It's not like the 12 habits of effective people kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, you really and truly have to recontextualize yourself by taking your consciousness to the deepest part of yourself that you can take it, and finding the expression of the divine that you can find. And there's always an expression of the divine, and it refines itself as you continue to meditate. And it goes from object imagination or just feeling good. That's usually what happens at the beginning of a meditative process, is that you just feel good. And then it goes from that to object imagination, and it goes into primordial energy. And primordial energy can always recontextualize you. So the first rule of the Talamanca Review is that nothing that is happening now is random. And yet, and this is an interesting one to talk about. And I think that it is interesting because I think the myth of the random is going away. I think people are beginning to put it all together. And unfortunately, very often, this narrative of putting it all together associates itself with groups of people. And those groups of people are more and more being identified and called out. I think this is a bad idea. As dark as the forces we are up against are, and very few people understand the darkness of it better than me, I still advocate for the spiritual context, which is dissolution of danger, meaning that you got to put the pin back in the hand grenade. You got to admit you're standing in an elevator and somebody just pulled the pin out of a hand grenade. And you got to find a way to get that pin back in the hand grenade without the grenade growing off. And at this point, without really hurting the person who pulled the pin on the grenade, whoever that might be. Now, I could start almost anywhere now, beginning in 1694 with the Bank of England, and tell the story in centuries. I could tell the story in the Devil in Us context, which is 1880 to 2024, 144 years. That's a very good narrative context. Now, it's not that the story and the plan wasn't working before then, if our history is correct. And quite frankly, there's no guarantee our history is correct. Okay? There is absolutely no guarantee our history is correct. And the reason that I say that is, along with this cache of technology that was given to the human race during the Second World War, and it was given, both sides were working with alien intelligences, non-human intelligences that were transferring information to them. I would say that the Nazis had a really good connection. I'd say in the beginning it was the Palladians. William Tompkins, in his book Selected by Extraterrestrials, says that the Nazis eventually made an alliance with the reptilians. Yeah, I find that hard to believe, but I could maybe just have not thought about it correctly. When you get in to the murky world of non-human intelligence interacting with us, using human agency to change the timeline on this planet, change the event stream on this planet, and that's what's going on. It's very hard to know what's going on unless you were there, unless you were part of the decision-making process. Is a very difficult thing to interpret, number one, after the fact, by decades, and number two, without first-hand knowledge. But it's just a podcast. I can speculate, but I give you my disclaimer before I allow my speculation, right? And openly admit that it is no more or less than speculation at this point, okay? So, where should I begin? I could do another narrative structure that I can... Yeah, this is the one I'll do tonight, okay? Because a lot of the Talamanca Review is about understanding time and events, okay? And I think this is an important way to understand the world. And I think it's the best way to dispel the myth of the random, okay? So I think a good place to start is the end of the Cold War. Now, the end of the Cold War, I think the Western intelligence or intelligence agencies, or the Western intelligentsia, or the Western political apparatus, I think that they knew that the Soviet Union was finished sometime in Reagan's second term. And now it did not manifest immediately at that point. It took a few more years. Some of you know that I met Gorbachev. I met him in, I think, 1987 when I was 21 years old. And I met him in Ottawa on a walking thoroughfare that is kind of an outdoor shopping mall. Cobblestone street that cars aren't allowed to go down except for emergency vehicles, police and ambulance. And he was coming down the Spark Street Mall with his security entourage, which included KGB and a detail from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And I was working at a restaurant on the Spark Street Mall. I was doing what I call my rubber year of university. So I went back to university at the age of 21 as a mature student. And I did very well, and that's what allowed me to apply to and be accepted into a journalism program in Toronto. So this was the year that I was doing my year as a mature student, and I was doing it at a university in Ottawa called Carleton University. And I was working at this restaurant, and we had been told at the beginning of my shift, I was a waiter, that the leader of the Soviet Union would be coming down the Spark Street Mall. And a couple hours went by, and then we heard, okay, they're coming. And literally everybody in the restaurant went outside. All the customers, all the staff, like plates were left on the tables. It was really kind of an upside down moment, not a typical moment you experience in life. And you could feel the history. You know, I don't know how many of you have ever been in a moment where you know you're experiencing history. I've had a number of them. I get them when I write books. And you may say that's a bit vainglorious. Oh, you think quite a bit of yourself, Bruce. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying my brain tells me this is a historical moment. You can feel it. It's hard to say. You can feel it. You know, especially when you do something that is recorded in time. And not everybody does this. Okay? So you do something while you're physically incarnate, and it's recorded in the Akashic record. Okay? So the Akashic record will record it as a moment not only in your life, but in the lives of many others, because the event will affect many other people. So there I was, and here comes Mikhail Gorbachev. Dozens of security people with him. And they had standing barricades put up that you couldn't walk past. But the space in front of the restaurant had been kept relatively clear because people had to get in and out of the restaurant. So when we came out of the restaurant, you could walk right to the front of the barricade, whereas if you went down 20 meters, the people were 10 deep. Okay? So I was able to get right to the front of the barricade, and the walkway he was walking, and on the other side, the barricade was about 25 feet away. So the length of space that was cleared for Gorbachev and his entourage was big. And he was favoring my side, okay? And he was stopping and talking to people. And he couldn't speak English, but he was speaking through a translator. And I was asked the question, what do you hear about me? And I just answered, I hear you're doing very good things. And that's it. That was my moment with Gorbachev. I said, I heard you're doing very good things. I didn't give any detail, any specifics. But it's very interesting to have that firsthand experience with a world leader of that gravitas, Mikhail Gorbachev, in 1987. And a lot of times, these people, when they're engaging people in a foreign country, they want to know what the real opinion is of the people on the street. And I was a 21-year-old Canadian boy. Right? So I gave my opinion. He smiled. He had a nice vibe, Gorbachev. He had a very nice vibe. So that was my moment in history. These things happen a lot in my family, actually. My son has had a number of really interesting moments in history as well. He was on a school field trip to Europe and was in St. Peter's Square the day Pope Francis was announced as the Pope, which was about 12 years ago. My son was 16. and I was there for Gorbachev. So I believed everything in the world up until that point. Now, I had developed a little bit of what you would call realpolitik in the Machiavellian sense. And Machiavelli was the Italian writer who wrote a book on power called The Prince. I think he wrote it in the 1600s, 15 or 1600s. And it's considered the definitive treatise on power and how power really works. And it's as relative today in 2025 as it was 400 years ago. A must-read for anybody serious about understanding how concentrated power perceives itself and what it perceives its role in the world to be. And what, more importantly, what power will do to maintain itself. And so when somebody says that's very Machiavellian, it generally means, stab you in the back, kill your own cousin or brother, like Michael Corleone stuff, like killing his own brother in The Godfather 2. That's Machiavellian. And this is the price of power. You can't have a conscience. This is what Machiavelli was trying to say. If you go the power route in life, you will destroy your conscience. And that's true for everybody, not just people who look to lead nations or lead criminal organizations or lead anything. It's true for all of us. If we become a part of a culture or a society that exudes or ramps up power, and that power is available to everybody, everyone within that matrix will run the same spiritual risk. And that is the loss of conscience, the loss of feeling, the loss of empathy, and the movement towards psychopathy. Because like most things that the doctors and experts tell us, psychopathy is not genetic. It can have genetic attributes. You can be born into a family which has been steeped in power for generations and absorbed the habits of power. And at a reflexive level, these people will live in a Machiavellian way. You will be raised in that environment and you will take on the Machiavellian disposition. But the truth is, psychopathy can be induced. Okay? Anybody can have their heart stripped away from them. Anybody can have their connection and their feeling with life taken away from them. Talk to anyone who's been through these programs. Anyone. Right? And here I'm talking about the mind control programs. And it takes them, if they ever get it back. Kathy O'Brien comes to mind. Santos sent me a rather interesting Jimmy Dore interview to watch today, and I watched about half of it, and it was about this very topic. And it takes these people a lifetime to get their feeling back, if they can at all. And that's done in a single lifetime. It's done in the first 12 years you're alive. So psychopathy can be induced. Don't ever think psychopathy cannot be induced. Okay? It can. It is.
Machiavelli was a 16th century Florentine political thinker with powerful advice for nice people who don't get very far. His thought pivots around a central, uncomfortable observation that the wicked tend to win, and they do so because they have a huge advantage over the good. They are willing to act with the darkest ingenuity and cunning to further their cause. They are not held back by those rigid opponents of change, principles. They will be prepared to outright lie, twist facts, threaten or get violent. They will also, when the situation demands it, know how to seductively deceive, use charm and honeyed words, bedazzle and distract. And in this way, they conquer the world. It's routinely assumed that a large part of what it means to be a good person is that one acts well. One doesn't only have good ends, one is committed to good means. So, if one wants a more serious world, one needs to win people over through serious argument, not clickbait. If one wants a fairer world, one has to judiciously and gently try to persuade the agents of injustice to surrender willingly, not through intimidation. And if one wants people to be kind, one must show kindness to one's enemies, not ruthlessness. It sounds splendid, but Machiavelli couldn't overlook an incontrovertible problem. It doesn't work. As he looked back over the history of Florence and the Italian states more generally, he observed that nice princes, statesmen and merchants always come unstuck. That's why he wrote the book for which we know him today, The Prince, a short, dazzling manual of advice for well-disposed princes on how not to finish last. And the answer, in short, was to be as nice as one wished, but never to be overly devoted to acting nicely, and indeed to know how to borrow, when need be, every single trick employed by the most cynical, dastardly, unscrupulous, and nastiest people who have ever lived. Machiavelli knew where our counterproductive obsession with acting nicely originated. The West was brought up on the Christian story of Jesus of Nazareth, the very nice man from Galilee who always treated people well and wound up as the King of Kings and the ruler of eternity. But Machiavelli pointed out one inconvenient detail to this sentimental tale of the triumph of goodness through meekness. From a practical perspective, Jesus' life was an outright disaster. This gentle soul was trampled upon and humiliated, disregarded and mocked. Judged in his lifetime and outside of any divine assistance, he was one of history's greatest losers. The clue to being effective lies in overcoming all vestiges of this story. The Prince was not, as is often thought, a guide to being a tyrant. It's a guide about what nice people should learn from tyrants. It's a book about how to be effective, not just good. It's a book haunted by examples of the impotence of the pure. The admirable prince, and today we might add CEO, political activist or thinker, should learn every lesson from the slickest, most devious operators around. They should know how to scare and intimidate, cajole and bully, entrap and beguile. The good politician needs to learn from the bad one, the earnest entrepreneur from the slick one. We are all ultimately the sum of what we achieve, not what we intend. If we care about wisdom, kindness, seriousness and virtue, but only ever act wisely, kindly, seriously and virtuously, we will, Machiavelli warns us, get nowhere. We need to learn lessons from an unexpected source, those we temperamentally most despise. They have the most to teach us about how to bring about the reality we yearn for, but that they are fighting against. We need weapons of similar grade steel to theirs. Ultimately, we should care more about being effective than about being nobly intentioned. It's not enough to dream well. The true measure is what we achieve. The purpose is to change the world for the better, not reside in the quiet comforts of good intentions and a warm heart. All this Machiavelli knew. He disturbs us for good reason, because he probes us where we are at our most self-serving. We tell ourselves we didn't get there because we're a little too pure, good and kind. Machiavelli bracingly informs us we are stuck because we have been too short-sighted to learn from those who really know, our enemies.
And there you go, Machiavelli for Dummies. I should also point out that based on the level of real politic that you are given in the Talamanca Review, Machiavelli is a starter guide. Machiavelli is not dealing with the stuff I'm talking about in the Talamanca Review, in The Devil in Us, a memoir of you and me. in the light of darkness or in Stardust Ranch. So it's a starter. But a lot of people, even to this day, find it shocking, which is a testament to the degree to which naivete lingers. And I want to take a moment to point out that it is possible, and I would argue necessary, to circumscribe the darkness in the world to understand the world. That this idea that you have to think positively and that you have to keep a sunny disposition toward life is, in my estimation, complete nonsense, complete bunk. That you are, in fact, better off knowing how the world really functions. And only by understanding how the world truly functions can we hope to affect change and, quite frankly, preserve ourselves. Because the political process has reached a point where its primary goal is mass extermination. And that is the deliberate part of the plan that's been around. This part of the plan's been around for at least 100 years. 100, 120, 140, 44. Both the time span of the devil and us. And as I said, in the necessity of faith, we cannot allow ourselves to forget that everything that happens in our material existence and our psychic existence is an expression of the divine and its energies which sustain existence. Ergo, God is a part of it, which I don't say to disparage the notion of a creator, of a God. I say it so that you will understand that God is not merely a human wish fulfiller, a human wish granter. There are times where the interest of the individual human has to be disregarded by God while that human being is alive in a life. And many people have a tremendous difficulty with this truth, that sometimes you have to make the sacrifice for God. It's not always God doing stuff for you. And those who live by the latter, which, to repeat, is God only doing stuff for you, live in a spiritual natalism. Let me see if that's even a word. I think it is. A spiritual infancy is what I'm trying to say, but natalism definition. Promotion of or advocacy for childbearing. I don't think I got that one right. So spiritual infancy or spiritual childishness. There will be no peace in your life till you locate your identity as something beyond physical, with the physical extension of you in an incarnation being an aspect of the Creator as well. But at this point in history, always perishable. In the future, the human life will be something much longer. We are being primed to be the beings that, I guess you could say, can live immortally. Okay? And this may sound like a lot of bravado, and perhaps some of you might hear what I'm saying as an overestimation of the importance of human beings in the grand scheme, I would say no. I would say that part of the UFO narrative is human belittlement. We're just a dumb species, you know. We only live 80, 85 years, and we destroy things, we fight, we war, we're impulsive, we can't really center ourselves in the spirit of our Creator. But these are all denigrations that, if you study them closely, they're part of the propaganda that has been foisted upon us. One thing the controllers in this moment of this reality do not want you to know is what you really are. And the human being is a template for the eternal being. And it is impossible to live eternally without commiseration with the Creator, meaning that you have to bend the knee. Okay? And an eternal being who had no connection to the Creator would live a life that was a form of self-torture. This is the demonic incarnation looked at from a slightly different cosmological liturgy. So you always want to stay connected to the Creator, because the Creator is the immortal being. And for you to even fathom something like immortality, it is only because at our deepest expressions, we are an aspect of this eternal Creator. And this eternal Creator loves us. Now, that's about the most positive thing I can tell you. But going back to what I said a little while ago in this podcast, there are times where the physical existence will be required to be sacrificed for a larger purpose. And you cannot think of the thing which destroys you as evil, because that thing which destroys you is a part of the field of existence that God permits. And everything in God's fields of existence is growing. And oftentimes that growth from the human or the incarnate perspective, because other races war as well, that perspective can be very daunting if you only see it from the human perspective. Now, I did not come on air tonight to do a podcast to prepare you mentally and emotionally for your own annihilation. I am just trying to give you a context by which the world you're living in now, and the plan that we all seem to be a part of now on this planet, and this plan seems in many ways unstoppable now. Now, this is not to say that the planners will achieve their final goal, which is to capture the planet, the human remnant, control it, augment it, cage it in a digital prison, and keep it as a kind of 21st century slave. I don't necessarily think that is going to happen in a long term. It might happen for a brief period of time, but nothing like, let's call it a Reich, 1,000-year Reich. It cannot happen. It's not meant to happen. It will not happen. But what needs to happen is we need to see this dark force which has been working upon us. And that is being made manifest to us more and more with each passing day. And this is also part of the plan, the divine unfolding. It's not part of their plan. This is something they can't control. And the reason they have to let the information come out now is for them to have any hope of surviving into the future, given what they are planning to do. They have to be able to stand upright in the fields of existence and rationalize what they did. And it is my unfortunate duty to inform you that the depopulation of the planet at this period in human history is in fact something that could be rationalized to the Creator for the greater good. Now, one of the conditions of their ability to do this is that they cannot prevent disclosure. They're trying to. They're still trying to control and massage it and run it through their public relations, but for the first time in my life, it's all falling flat on its face. And I believe we're getting the real context within which we're living. I believe, all immodesty aside, any book I have written in the last 5 years, minus The Galactic Historian, so that would be Stardust Ranch, Light of Darkness, or The Devil and Us, any one of those 3 books could go viral and sell tens of thousands of copies any day now. All that is required to happen is that the right podcaster has it recommended to them, reads it, understands it, and proselytizes it. It has nothing to do with interviewing me, but just proselytizes it and said, this is an incredible context for the time we're living in. Now, whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. But I have written books that when I wrote them, I could not imagine a time in which the world would be ready to accept them in larger numbers. I knew that there were partially awake people who could absorb them and understand what I was trying to say, but I didn't think large numbers would be able to. And what I've witnessed in the last couple years, the last book came out about 1.5 years ago, December 5th, 2023. We're now July 20, 2025, so almost exactly 1.5 years ago. It is amazing how many of the things I put down in that book are now openly being talked about. The uncanny similarity between the Nazis and the Zionists, and how nobody noticed this for 80 years is mind-boggling. It's like there was a magic spell upon us. Or maybe we had been so conditioned to look away from the affairs of our Hebraic brothers and sisters in humanity that nobody really tried that hard. But I can assure you that it takes a certain boldness and moxie to put these things down on paper and formally publish them. And I did. And in doing those things, I committed myself to a truth. And it is my belief that that truth disseminated into a larger population of people could have a beneficial effect on the world, a profoundly beneficial effect. Now, whether these things come about or not, I don't know. Okay? Nor do I think about them that much. But I do know that I have been a very good witness to my time. Okay? So the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not bear false witness. Many people believe that's in reference to taking an oath in a formal proceeding and testifying against somebody. And that is certainly an aspect of it. But the true meaning of thou shalt not bear false witness is that you call the world as your heart and mind sees it, vetting your own perceptual processes through scrutiny, because you don't want to just start mouthing off every time you think you might have figured something out. But you definitely have to tell the truth. Now, why is that so difficult? I explained it in the books. It's difficult because people don't want to give up their lives. Not everybody can build an earthbag house in the middle of nowhere and live on $800 a month. Okay? Easily and comfortably and eating well. But I have, and I can, and I will. And so, to sum up tonight, in this Forrest Gump podcast, the context we're in is the fulfillment of a depopulation plan and the rolling out of a new humanity that will be technologically augmented and capable of going into a transhumanist reality. But this is what I assure you of. If that technology interferes with the human ability to commiserate with its creator in any way, shape, or form, it will be perceived by the universe to be blasphemous and will be dealt with directly by the agents of the creator. You can fill the blank in however you want, angel, whatever. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has in fact been the Talamanca Review. Peace out.